Welcome to The Explainer. So, in 2025, one precious metal in India didn't just shine, it basically caught fire. Today, we're going to dig into the incredible story, the perfect storm, really, that caused silver prices to skyrocket to these historic, absolutely eye watering highs. And no, I am not exaggerating one bit. In 2025, silver handed investors a stunning 130% year to date return. I mean, prices on India's multi commodity exchange, the MCX, they just rocketed to a record breaking 2,14,000 rupees per kilogram. You heard that right. This incredible jump more than doubled the money for anyone who got in early. So the big question is, what on earth caused this massive, unprecedented spike? How do we get here? Okay, so let's break it all down. We'll kick things off with a core problem, supply and demand. Then, we'll look at the global supply crunch before turning to India's just unquenchable thirst for the metal. We're also going to explore how new technology is completely changing the game. And finally, what all of this means for you. Right, so the fundamental reason for this price surge, it's a classic economic perfect storm. You had this huge, and I mean huge demand for silver running headfirst into a very, very limited supply. And here's where it gets really interesting. India is the biggest silver consumer on the entire planet, but it produces almost none of its own. It has to rely on imports to satisfy that incredible hunger for the metal. And in 2025, that dependency became a massive, massive problem. So let's flip over to the supply side of the equation for a minute and see how this global shortage just created a crisis in the Indian market, putting this intense squeeze on prices. The numbers here are just staggering. In the first 8 months of 2025, silver imports into India plummeted by a massive 42%. Now, this wasn't just a small dip. This was a severe supply crunch that literally left the market gasping for air. And you have to understand, this wasn't just an Indian problem. London, which is a key supplier for India, saw its own silver stocks drop to their lowest point in years. The global well was just running dry, making it harder and way more expensive for anyone, anywhere, to get their hands on the metal. In fact, 2025 marked the fifth straight year that the global silver market was in a deficit. As you can see here, demand was just consistently outpacing new supply, creating this structural shortage that was, well, bound to have some serious consequences. Okay, so you've got supply squeezed to its absolute limits. And then an annual cultural tradition comes along and turns the whole situation from a crunch into a full-blown frenzy. India's festive season, it's a traditional time for buying precious metals as gifts and investments. It saw this absolutely unprecedented rush for silver. It was like everyone all at once decided they needed to own it. And just look at the sheer scale of that frenzy. The value of silver imports in October 2025 didn't just rise, it exploded by over 500% compared to the year before. I mean, that's not a surge, that's a tidal wave of demand crashing into the market. And of course, prices reacted to this pressure almost instantly. In just the first 2 weeks of October, the price per kilogram jumps by 25%. Think about that for a second. A quarter of its value was added in just a fortnight. But listen, this story isn't just about tradition and festivals. It's also about a technological revolution that is absolutely hungry for silver, and it's adding this whole new, powerful layer of demand to the mix. See, because of its unique properties, especially its amazing electrical conductivity, silver has quietly become this essential, totally non-negotiable material for India's high-tech transformation. It's become a key ingredient in pretty much everything. We're talking solar panels, which use about 20 grams each, electric vehicles with all their complex wiring, the big push for domestic electronics manufacturing, and of course, the nationwide rollout of 5G networks. So, what this all means is that these massive government initiatives, like the huge mission to expand solar energy, are creating this enormous, long-term industrial demand for silver that frankly just didn't exist on this scale before. All right, let's get to the final piece of the puzzle, how this perfect storm of cultural demand, global shortages, and a tech revolution completely changed silver's role for the average investor. With its incredible performance in 2025, silver suddenly stepped out of gold's shadow. It became a really serious, high-performing alternative for investors who were looking for both safety and, let's be honest, much higher returns. And the numbers really do tell the story. In 2025, silver investments blew past gold.
offering around 71% growth compared to gold's respectable but much lower 54%. And you can bet that investors took notice.
This powerful appeal drove record amounts of money into silver exchange traded funds, or ETFs. They became top performers because they offered that perfect combination. You get the safety of a precious metal, the explosive growth potential, and a much more accessible price point for retail investors. So, when you look at the whole picture, the silver surge of 2025 wasn't just some market event. It was really a reflection of a nation's deep-rooted culture colliding head-on with its ambitious high-tech future. And all of this leaves us with a final crucial question. With prices now settling into this new normal at these incredible highs, the challenge for investors isn't really if they should consider silver anymore, but how to best approach and navigate this newly transformed and really dynamic asset.